And welcome to the Barry Foster Show from the Ridge Florist Studios here in the City of Charm, beautiful downtown Avon Park. Remember, if you have any thoughts, ideas, or suggestions, people you'd like us to talk to, or subjects you'd like us to broach, just put them in the comments below. We'll get back to you, and we try to be very responsive. Tell the almighty algorithm that we love our fans out there, and we respond to them as much as we can. We're going to start a new series here. We've had a series of entertainers. We've had some people from the Christian faith talking about things that they're doing. We have, of course, a lot of political guests. But we're going to talk about things that are made in America. And I can't think of a better place to start than with my friend Baxter Troutman, who started a meat processing plant just right over the border here in beautiful Polk County. And first of all, good morning, Baxter. How you doing, my friend?
Barry, I'm great. Thank you for having me today, sir.
It's great to have you on. And first of all, can we talk a little bit about your history in agriculture? I've known you when you were state representative. You ran for Secretary of Ag, so you have a rich history in agriculture.
Well, I guess so. I was blessed, I suppose, to be born into it. You know, a family that was involved in the citrus industry and cattle ranching. So I guess in part I come by it honest.
So did you grow up? I mean, taking care of citrus groves, or were you more of a rancher? How did that work out exactly?
Well, truth be told, from my perspective, my grandfather was the patriarch who grew the business, and um, it was pretty apparent to me, and I'm sure other folks around Frostproof where I grew up, that I was being groomed to be more focused on the ranching side of the family business. I can I can remember, and I say this jokingly, but I'm kind of serious at the same time, that if my grandfather knew I was out of school for a couple of days, he saw to it that I was doing something in the woods in the ranching arena with the various different cowboys. So I remember as young as 12 years old in the summers or spring break being exposed. I have circled back to some of those former managers and thanked them for tolerating me because I was probably more in the way than anything. But you know, it was about being exposed, so that's certainly paid dividends later here in my life now.
So when did you get into the idea of processing local meats? How did that come to be?
So, as you already mentioned, I had a previous career in Tallahassee, um, and I was and still am a big outdoorsman. My passion's mostly deer hunting, and so when I was up in the Panhandle, I became exposed to uh, deer processing facilities, and that was somewhat of a foreign concept to me because in the peninsular part of the state, certainly south of I-4, uh, there weren't deer processing uh, facilities. So after after that career ended, uh, I had been on a hunting trip, had some meat, brought it back to Central Florida, and really had a deuce of a time trying to find someone who could process it for me. I eventually did. It was not a great experience. So right then and there, I thought, well, you know, if I'm having this problem, all my other hunting buddies are too. So I set out to start a deer processing business. That was 14 years ago, and frankly, that's was kind of the beginning of where I am today.
Did you find that there was a need for that down here? I mean, the deer down here are pretty small. I mean, did you find that did that business begin to grow for I guess both deer and hog and other kinds of
Yep.
wild game?
Yes, sir. Naturally, in the first year or so, it was slow. Um, and truth be told, the first year was a bit of a train wreck. I had the wrong person helping me, but that all changed in year two. and it didn't take long for the business to really take off. Yes, the deer hunting in Florida, certainly central southern Florida, is not as big and popular, I guess you'd say, as you'd see in perhaps states of like Georgia, Alabama, etc. But what we've since come to learn is a lot of hunters will have a lease in another state, or they'll go on a trip, and historically they would have had to have left the meat and then turn around and go back and get it, which was a pretty big inconvenience. But with them having an outlet here, locally, it was a big benefit.
Was it difficult to find people who could do the job that you needed done processing wild game? I mean, being a meat butcher for cattle is one thing. Being something for wild games, is that a different, so to speak, a different animal?
Well, certainly, obviously, it's a different animal, jokingly, but the cuts are the same.
Okay,
And so, yeah, it's just obviously a 1,200-pound steer is obviously bigger than a deer, but you know, they're mammals. They're the same.
okay. Did it take you a while to run up and get the right people for the job that you wanted to have done?
Well, I got really lucky. And this is a whole nother story, but the upshot is a former secretary of mine's husband uh, had been cutting meat at that point for some 40 years, and he was seeking employment. And I took a chance after that first year because, like I said, that first year was a real challenge. But um, took a chance on Pop, and man, he really did a fantastic job. Ended up working with me for about 10 years until he literally hung his spurs up.
Well, they say outside of every silver lining, there's a big black cloud, and for us, the big black cloud was the pandemic when most everything shut down, and you found an opportunity to take the business you were already doing and expand it to a much wider consumer base.
Well said. You're right. Chopping Block had been open for about 9 or 10 years when COVID hit. And as I'm sure you and your listeners can recall, COVID, amongst other things, really exposed the weaknesses in our supply chain. I personally remember not being able to get toilet paper or Dawn dish detergent, or you'd go to the grocery stores and the shelves would virtually be empty. It was kind of a chaotic time, but food's pretty essential. And um, about 30 days, maybe 45 days after COVID was I don't want to say launched, but announced, or, when the scare occurred publicly, um, we were set to ship and sell our steer calves at Garcamic. And my manager there had the foresight to call the market ahead of doing that. The semis were on their way to load, and Ben called the market, and I was right there with him. And when he told me what the price was, my jaw hit the ground. I was like, "Oh my word! I cannot give these away. It's essentially my sole revenue source for the ranch." And so he said, "Well, what do you want to do?" And I said, "I don't know, but again, we can't give these steers away. Give me a couple days to think about this." And so um, from that point, I got in touch with my IT guy, because having nearly 10 years experience at that point with deer processing and meat processing. I knew enough to be dangerous, and I knew that if I could find a person, an individual, or a couple of individuals to purchase a steer from me directly from the ranch, then they owned that animal. And if they were willing to pay me what I was asking, then I could slaughter and process that animal without getting into trouble with the government regulations.
Yeah, you were
And
under the provisions of the law to do it that way.
well, yeah, I was what they considered what USDA considers custom exempt.
Hmm.
And so, but the hard part, Barry, was finding that unique special buyer, that one individual, or like I said before, maybe two people that could, purchase 600 pounds of meat. Um, again, we were during it was during COVID, and probably the number one response that I got back from my potential customers was, well, if I had a freezer, a deep freezer, I would certainly do it, but I have no way to handle that kind of volume. And so, and guess what? You couldn't get deep freeze. So it was a challenge. What I the platform that I used to reach out to folks was frankly was Facebook Marketplace. I would post an ad, and I geo-fenced an area basically from Crystal River to Daytona, and Daytona to Fort Lauderdale, and then over to Fort Myers. And we would target that geographical area with these Facebook ads, and I would run it on Thursday night, and it would come down noon on Friday, and it was overwhelming, the responses that I got. I mean, hundreds of responses, such that I would spend the rest of the weekend circling back and contacting and talking to these various interested parties, and then might be lucky to get three or four of them to buy. And uh and you know what, I ended up selling every steer that I had. um I knew my neighbors, my ranching neighbors, were also in the same predicament, so I started buying their steers at a premium, sharing the love with them. And and it just we never slowed down during COVID. It was, back in the days that, you had to stay home unless it was absolutely essential. Well, again, food's pretty essential. So um, we spent the next 6 or 7 months uh, doing this direct to consumer, farm to table, whatever you want to call it. I think, frankly, we were probably one of the first people in the state to do this. And in the midst of all that, I got a call from a guy in Vero Beach who'd shared with me that he knew where there was a USDA slaughter facility that was mobile that I should take a look at. Because again, going back, um, in order for you to sell smaller portions, like say one ribeye steak, to a consumer, then it has to be inspected by USDA. If somebody wants to buy an entire steer for their own personal consumption, that's a horse of a different color. But when you go to the retail level, then the federal government requires that you have this USDA inspection. So I went and looked at this equipment. It was in Charlotte County. Um, Met with them a couple times, and then ended up acquiring this 53-foot customized semi trailer that half of it is the slaughter room and the other half is a carcass storage cooler. And, one thing led to another. And now here we are today, fully under USDA inspection. And to kind of go back in time a little bit, about 2 years ago, I decided to move the chopping block, which was the initially deer processing facility, down to Frostproof. Um, we're located on US 27, basically at the intersection of 98 27. But in doing so, I could then start selling retail cuts of meat, and that chopping block facility is 5 minutes from the slaughterhouse. So that's how I ended up back in Frostproof.
Do you find that you've changed the market? I mean, first you changed the market of people buying a steer, or maybe even a half a steer, to people now being able to go to this facility and knowing that the meat was grown right here in Central Florida. You don't have to worry about country of label origin, because it's all very, very local.
Oh, it's extremely local. I mean, we do grass-fed beef that comes off of my ranch. Gracious, these animals are born and raised, right there. Doesn't get much more local than that. Also during the fair season, for the FFA and 4-H kids, um, each fair usually has a provision where the buyer of the child's project, if they don't want it, they can sell it back to the fair. And so that provides a source for me to pick up really, really, really good grain finished beef that you couldn't otherwise hardly afford to feed them out and finish them because of the cost of the feed and the freight.
And from experience, you can provide this pretty much at market prices. The prices aren't significantly different from what you find at the local grocery mart.
I would like to think that it's actually more affordable with us. Certainly on the grass-fed side, I'm pretty religious about checking prices when I go to the grocery store on meat, and without mentioning any retailers' names, um, typically on grass-fed burger, they're about $9 a pound, and I'm confident we're at about $7.50 a pound today.
Wow.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you
And,
mention the fact Baxter, you get 1% off. That we have taken advantage of that. I just want you to know.
right.
But now you do all the stuff off the Dark Hammock Legacy Ranch, but like in the past, now are you also going not only to the fair, but maybe some of the other ranchers around, and getting some of their beef stock to help get your stock up?
Well, we frankly, we periodically do that, yes. But having, a few years now being in business with the processing plant, which Barry, by the way, we refer to as F1 Meat Co. Um, I'm able to coordinate the inventory with my ranch manager to keep the pipeline full. But one of the things that we do beyond just processing our own meat for chopping block is we work with a lot of other, I don't know if you call them hobby farmers or small farmers, but again, going back to COVID, I think that was a game changer for a lot of people when it comes to their food supply. There's a great trend today on wanting to know where your food comes from, know the backstory, how, in the case of livestock, they're handled, etc. But a lot of people have started raising their own steer or their own hog or goat or lamb in the backyard for their personal consumption. So that probably what we refer to as private owned animals probably accounts for some 30 to 35% of our volume at F1.
Wow. So the chopping block is located there at 27 and 98. It's right there at a major intersection. But Baxter. I hate to tell you, it's really not the most populated area of Florida. Do you find
No.
do you find that you're drawn from a larger a larger radius of people coming down from, I don't know, Winter Haven, coming up from Sebring, coming over from Wauchula, maybe to pick up this locally grown beef, so they're confident in where it was grown and how it was processed?
Yes, certainly. I think our customer base, and to be brutally honest, I'm speculating a little bit, because we don't necessarily track that.
Hmm.
Uh, but I do know that our market footprint service areas probably generally about 30-35 mile radius from the shop.
So now you've got this started here. You've got a winning formula. It seems that it's a win-win for everybody. A good deal for the consumer and a good deal for the ranchers. Is there any idea of moving, maybe, and having some satellite operations in different parts of the state that work off this model and can service maybe places where they have other local beef stock growing?
I get inquiries all the time like this, Barry, and the quick answer is yes. I have, it's just inherently natural in me to want to grow and expand. And so the answer is yes. I have given that consideration, but I don't have a plan in place at this moment to do it. But it is a model that works. It's been about a 14-year evolution, so I've taken baby steps all this time. One of the challenges is personnel, having the right person in the shop, in this case in chopping block. But if I could find those dance partners, this could certainly be franchisable, if you will.
So you mentioned the kids that raised 4-H and FFA projects. Do you find any of those who want to get into ag, who want to get into the processing end of the business, who come and say, I'd like to do an internship with you a couple of weeks over the summer, something like that?
I did an internship for a college student actually a couple of years ago, right after F1 was born, and she's a student at, I believe she's at ABAC, but a local girl and from Avon Park, and she spent the summer with us, and at the end, I think she was really pleased she did it.
So now, Baxter, if there's folks, in the, let's say right now in the Highlands, Polk County area, maybe the Hardee County area, who want to find your operation, or who maybe even want to travel a little bit further to come down and see it and maybe get some good Florida grown beef, how do they find you? Do you have a website? You on Facebook,
We
Instagram?
do. We do. The website for the processing plant is, of course, www.f1meatco.com. And then for chopping block, it's chop-in-block.com. And then for the ranch, our website is dh-lr.com.
Okay, so if you want to find out about the meat processing, you go to f1meatco.com. The chopping
Yep.
block, which is the retail operation, is chop-n-block.com. And you want to go to Dark Horse Legacy Ranch, which is dh-lr.com. And I got to tell you right here at the end, because my wife and I, that's where we get our beef. And you got the most wonderful little gal working behind the counter there. She does a great job for you there, Baxter.
Lisa's fantastic. Yes, she is. And that's very in large part. I'm glad you brought that up because, any operation is a function of the strength of the team in it. And I'm blessed to have at the processing plant a fantastic team there, at chopping block and of course at the ranch. Um, I want to mention one other thing, and I'll try and make it quick. We may be a little short on time,
We're
but
good.
you just never know what's going to come down the pipe. And here's a perfect example. Over the weekend, I got contacted by a meat broker in Miami, and as I understand it, his business is he has beef cut and then shipped to Miami from somewhere in the Midwest, um, Nebraska, Missouri. I don't know exactly. He didn't tell me where, but he is looking for a closer, call it local, um, individual who can provide both the meat and or the cutting. And so we had a long conversation. Um, this is very much in its infancy, but his market is predominantly high-end restaurants in Miami, and so it's looking like this business could grow another leg and start helping this guy because uh, the freight alone to have the product shipped from the Midwest to Florida, at the very least, he would save that. That'd go straight to his bottom line. So, like I said, you just never know what the next day is going to bring, and you just keep an open mind and take them as they come.
So let me ask you, at F1, do you have any idea of the percentage of capacity you're at? Are you at 25, 50, 75% of capacity? Would you have to pull another trailer onto the property, you think?
Well, I unfortunately adding on to the existing facility is not an option. I didn't know what I didn't know when I put it together, and I sadly have left myself no room to expand the operation. However, what I could do is go to a second and or third shift of
Mm,
cutting.
there you go.
Yeah.
Is You're
So,
always thinking. You're always thinking.
right.
But Baxter, I'll tell you, what has kind of turned out to be a hobby, then to filling of an unfulfilled need, to a great business made in America. You've done a great job, and I tell you, as a consumer, we're very blessed and very happy with what you've done.
Well, thank you very much. And for those individuals that are listening that have purchased from us, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. If you haven't, I would ask you to give us a chance, give us a shot. We're really excited about the future of all of this.
Baxter Troutman from Dark Horse Legacy Ranch. You want to find out
Hey,
more?
hey,
Yes, sir.
Barry, it's technically Dark Hammock Legacy
I'm
Ranch.
sorry, Dark Hammock. I misspoke. Dark Hammock
It's
Legacy
okay.
Ranch. You can find it at Chop N Block. That's CHOP, chop N BLOCK.com. And make sure you get your beef there, whether it's grass fed, grass and feed, or feed fed. Baxter, thank you so much for your time.
Barry, my pleasure. Thank you, sir.
And you've been listening to our first Made in America segment here on the Barry Foster Show. Glad to have you on board from the Ridge Floor Studios in beautiful downtown Avon Park. Any thoughts, ideas, or suggestions, please put them in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe. As we continue to look for truth, justice, and the American way, this is Barry Foster, and we'll see you next time.